Hey there, and welcome back to the Deep Dive. We've got, well, quite a stack of material in front of us today. Reports, some analysis, articles too, all digging into a really big announcement from the UK government recently. We're talking about the decision to significantly ramp up defense spending. So our mission today, like always, is to try and cut through the noise, pull out the really key points, and help you understand what this big shift is actually all about. Why now? And what could the ripples be? And to help us navigate all this, I'm joined by our expert guide, someone with a really deep background as a defense analyst and with experience in military matters, too. Great at pulling together all this info and showing how it connects.
It's great to be here. Yes, a really significant policy shift. And the sources we've looked at, they do lay out the different angles quite clearly.
Absolutely. Okay, then let's unpack this. So the core announcement, the sources say it came on February 25th. The Prime Minister announced a plan to boost UK defense spending to 2.5% of GDP by 2030.
That's right, 2030.
Right, 2030, not 2027 like I first thought. So thanks, sources. It's a pretty hefty increase.
It is.
It means an extra £75 billion over the next 6 years, bringing the total spend up to $87 billion a year by 2030. That's a significant jump.
A very significant jump.
So what's really driving such a big commitment right now?
Well, what's really fascinating, I think, is the consensus you see in the sources. They're all pointing towards this fundamental shift in, the global security environment. It's not just one thing, but sort of a convergence of threats getting worse. There's consistent mention of increased aggression from state actors. Russia, China, Iran are mentioned specifically.
But using different methods.
Exactly. Everything from, conventional military posturing right through to cyber warfare, disinformation campaigns. And then there's the stark reality of the war in Ukraine.
Right, highlighting the need for strong defense.
Precisely. And the UK's ongoing commitment to NATO, making sure it contributes effectively.
So it feels less like a proactive strategic move and maybe more like a reaction, a necessity based on, a worsening global picture.
That's exactly how many sources frame it. A response to a world that's just become demonstrably more dangerous, more unpredictable.
Mm-hmm.
Even the Prime Minister's own statements, which were cited, emphasize that strength is seen as, the best deterrent against this aggression.
Got it. Okay, so it's not just about the amount of money, is it? The sources also detail some strategic changes linked to this spending. What does that actually look like on the ground?
Yeah, this is really key. It's not just throwing money at existing stuff. The plan includes some very deliberate modernization efforts. For instance, there's a big push to integrate capabilities, bringing cyber warfare and electronic warfare together under a new unified command.
A unified command?
Yes, the National Cyber and Electromagnetic Command.
Okay, unifying cyber and electronic warfare. What's the strategic punch of doing that? Why is that specific integration so important now?
Well, that's where the so what comes in, right? Combining these things, digital defense and, say, disrupting enemy communications or targeting systems, it's a direct lesson from modern conflicts. It allows for a much more coordinated, much more effective response to these hybrid threats, where attackers use digital means and electronic jamming alongside, conventional tactics.
Okay, so it's about being more agile. Responsive.
Exactly. Agile and responsive in what's become a really contested digital and electromagnetic space. And there's also a major investment, about $1 billion mentioned, specifically for AI-driven systems.
AI systems?
Yeah, aimed at better managing the huge amounts of military data intelligence, logistics, everything.
Right, using artificial intelligence. And the goal there is what? Faster decision-making? Better intelligence processing?
Both, really. The sources suggest the aim is to dramatically speed up analyzing complex data. That lets commanders make quicker, more informed decisions on the battlefield.
So it's about getting an edge.
It's about getting that crucial advantage by processing information faster than an adversary can. It really shows a clear focus on technology and data as, critical domains in modern warfare.
Fascinating. Now, let's talk about the money itself. Finding £75 billion over 6 years, that's not trivial.
Not at all.
And the sources mention some, let's say, difficult choices being made to fund this, particularly around overseas development aid.
Yes, and this is arguably one of the most contentious aspects you see highlighted across the different sources we looked at. Part of the funding plan involves reducing the overseas development budget. The plan is to take it from its current level, 0.5% of gross national income, down to over 0.3% for the period of this defense uplift.
And this is where we see those different perspectives in the material, isn't it? Some view it as, a necessary reallocation, prioritizing national security in what is seen as a dangerous world.
Correct. That's essentially the government's argument presented in the sources that these difficult trade-offs are necessary when you're facing acute security threats. They frame it as essential to protecting the nation's core interests.
While other sources offer strong critiques, arguing that cutting aid impacts global humanitarian work, it could harm vulnerable populations.
Yes, and potentially even undermine the UK's sort of diplomatic influence or its standing internationally. That tension is very clear in the analysis.
It really highlights that clash of priorities, doesn't it?
It's a stark illustration, yes.
No.
The complex balance between hard power, like military spending, and soft power, like aid and diplomacy in foreign policy.
Thinking beyond the UK's borders, then, how is a move like this perceived internationally? What sort of signal does it send to allies, especially maybe the US?
Well, it sends a very strong signal of commitment,
Right.
particularly to NATO and transatlantic security. The sources note this increase really aligns with the UK's push to get other NATO members to meet or go beyond that 2% spending target. And it explicitly supports diplomatic efforts, like the Prime Minister engaging in Washington to, bolster support for Ukraine. It shows the UK is putting serious resources behind its talk on collective security.
But I noticed some commentary in the sources raises a question. Does this level of alignment, this investment, particularly being so in sync with U.S. priorities, does it risk limiting the UK's ability to pursue its own independent foreign policy line?
That's an insightful point that does come up in some of the analysis, yeah. Navigating those expectations from key allies while still maintaining your own sovereign decision-making, that's always a challenge in international relations.
A constant balancing act.
And this policy definitely brings that challenge into sharper focus.
Turning back inward then, what about the potential domestic impact? The surge in defense spending, how might it affect industries, jobs across the UK?
Well, a key stated objective from the government, as it's presented in the sources, is absolutely to strengthen the UK's own defense industrial base. The intention seems to be that this significant investment will translate into job creation, drive technological innovation, within the UK itself.
So they're specifically targeting certain regions or perhaps types of industries?
Yes, the plans mention directing investment into manufacturing and R&D activities. They highlight potential benefits for areas that already have defense sector hubs. Places like Glasgow, Derby, Newport are mentioned.
Okay.
So it appears to be an attempt to leverage defense spending as, a tool for regional economic growth and supporting those high-tech industries.
Looking ahead then, based on the material, what are the big challenges? Or maybe the opportunities that this whole defense strategy presents for the future?
The sources flag several critical points.
Hmm.
On the challenge side, there's ensuring that this massive investment is actually spent effectively.
Yeah.
Avoiding the classic problems with large government projects, delays, cost overruns, that sort of thing.
Always a risk.
Always a risk. And there's also the ongoing challenge of maintaining public support for these decisions, especially when they involve taking funds from other areas, like aid.
And opportunities.
On the opportunity side, if it's managed well, this could position the UK as a leader in next-generation defense technologies. It could significantly enhance its military capabilities and strengthen its position within key alliances. Ultimately, the stated goal is, of course, increased national security in a more dangerous world.
It really just underscores how complex a decision like this is, doesn't it? Touching so many different areas, national life, international relationships.
Absolutely. It forces really difficult trade-offs, and the ripples, they extend far beyond just the military budget itself. And maybe, if we connect this to the bigger picture, you could think about the long-term balancing act that's required here. How does a nation like the UK actually sustain this high level of defense investment needed for, say, technological leadership and perceived security, while also managing the domestic pressure on public finances and the potential strain on other non-defense spending, especially when, public support is pretty essential for the policy to stick long-term?
That is a truly critical question to ponder, and understanding all these different layers is, absolutely essential if you want to be well-informed on an issue of this magnitude. Thank you so much for guiding us through all this material today.
My pleasure. It's good to talk it through.
And thank you, our listener, for joining us for this deep dive. We really hope it helped you cut through some of the complexity and gain a clearer picture of what's happening. Until next time, take care.